Eliminating water poverty goes beyond just quenching someone's thirst. It also eliminates many inequalities that millions of Indians face today. It eliminates gender inequality. With clean water, we empower women to rise above becoming water wives. It eliminates corruption and economic predators. With access to wells in communities, water mafias are put out of business. It eliminates economic hardship in rural communities. With access to irrigation water, farmers can support themselves and their families. It eliminates political unrest. With access to the most basic human need, we create a more harmonious society. What starts with a drop of water ripples outward, promoting solutions for gender inequality, economic mobility, civic pride, and climate change. When you eliminate water poverty, you create a better India.
Hello there, namaste. Welcome to OVBI's 8th session of our Water Life series. And this one will focus on how social entrepreneurship can amplify the impact of on-the-ground efforts and, for example, to improve water utilization that OVBI is very interested in. My name is Manu Namburi, and I'm here to welcome you to today's session on behalf of the entire OVBI community of volunteers and partners. We're very excited to have a really wonderful conversation here between Digvijay Chaudhary, the founder and CEO of an exciting social entrepreneurship ecosystem effort called SOBUS, and BV Jagdish, the co-chair of OVBI's water initiatives. Let me quickly introduce them both before I hand over the session to BVG to facilitate today's conversation. Digvijay Chaudhary graduated in electrical engineering from IIT Bombay and then completed his master's in electrical engineering from the University of Texas at Austin, which is where I also went. So go Horns, right? Later, he worked in Cadence Design Systems, a leading EDA company in Austin and the Bay Area. Deeply inspired by the humanitarian work of Sri Sri Ravi Shankarji, Digvijay moved from Silicon Valley back to the global headquarters of the Art of Living Foundation in Bengaluru in India. He has been a full-time volunteer with the foundation for the past 16 years, driving large projects, including infrastructure and development. As the chief administrator of the foundation's headquarters in Bengaluru, Digvijay set up and streamlined the operations of the 350-acre campus by creating simple, adaptable, and scalable systems suitable for a volunteer-driven nonprofit organization. Next, he established and scaled the Sri Sumeru Realty Private Limited as a professionally managed quasi-social enterprise in the area of real estate and construction, delivering projects totaling 20 lakh square foot area worth actually more than USD $60 million, right? With industry-leading profit margins. Currently, Digvijay is focused on building SOBUS Insight Forum as a global platform that catalyzes sustainable, scalable social impact via a holistic ecosystem for social startups to establish themselves and grow. And conversing with Digvijay is the co-chair of OVBI's water initiative, BV Jagdish. BV Jagdish is the managing partner at Kaj Ventures. He has successfully invested and guided companies such as Nutanix, Yodlee, Arkin, Elasticbox, NetMagic Solutions, just to name a few. Before founding Kaj Ventures, BV Jagdish served as the founding investor and CEO of Netscaler, which was successfully sold to Citrix. Prior to Netscaler, he co-founded and served as CTO of Exodus Communications that was founded in 1993 and pioneered the concept of internet data centers. He was instrumental in the successful IPO of Exodus in 1998. Currently, Jagdish is an active investor and serves on the board of several Silicon Valley startups. He's also an adjunct faculty at the Levy School of Business, SCU. Along with OVBI, Jagdish is very actively involved with several nonprofits for the betterment of the world, such as the UVCE Foundation, which provides scholarships to deserving students, One School at a Time, which constructs school buildings for the underprivileged, and Akshaya Patra, that provides midday meals to over 1.6 million children every single day. I now invite BV Jagdish ji to kickstart this fascinating conversation with Digvijay ji.
Manu, thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. Really appreciate. Digvijay ji, good morning, good evening. Thank you so much for taking your time and sharing your experiences and everything with us and with our audience and with the OVBI. There's so much to learn from you so that we can take some of those learnings and start experimenting with our OVBI journey that we are going through. So before we start the conversation around this, I just want to ask you one personal question, if you don't mind. You have a dream educational background. I mean, you have a IIT Bombay electrical engineering degree. You have a UT Austin, as Manu was saying. I mean, it's a very prestigious university, even within the US as well. People dream of joining these universities and making an incredible career, especially on the economic aspect of it. And you did work for a couple of companies after your degree, but something happened and you got drawn into serving the social aspect, by giving up this economic aspect of what most people would be working towards. Instead, you somehow shifted your path. And I've met a couple of such people in my life as well, where some of these people with tremendous educational background who have gone on the spiritual path, and you are going more on the social entrepreneurship and volunteering paths. And I'm just curious to understand, what is that calling? What is that thing that really happens that shifts you from this economic path that everyone is pursuing to this social impact or social path that you have taken on? So if you don't mind, I think that'll be a very fascinating story for all of us to learn. And I'm sure it's going to inspire many of us as well. Please go ahead.
Well, thank you. And I'm very happy to be with all of you. Thanks for inviting me. And there's variations of this answer I give depending on who I'm talking to and how much in jest I can, take them. So sometimes I start as, I had a nervous breakdown because my relationship, went kaput, and then I went bankrupt, and then my health deteriorated, and everything possible wrong under the sun happened.
Yeah.
And after the pause, I say, none of that actually happened. What actually happened was I had been connected with Gurudev Sri Ravi Shankarji's work, and I got increasingly involved in volunteering. And I realized that for myself, my realization was that if this model of the planet where people come in and then go out, and when they go out, they can't carry out anything out of the system. So someone who has designed the system so flawlessly, it works at such scale, unimaginable scale, flawlessly. If that designer intended for you to take anything out of here, he would have made sure of a way. But it's not so. So obviously, we are not here to collect or take anything out of the system. We are here to give. And that journey was started for me by the teachings of Gurudev Srishti. And I would say it was just an evolution from there in my personal growth. All of us are on our own paths. There's no right or there's no wrong path. But for me, it was when I'm on the planet, can I do something which is more sustainable, useful, and leave the place a little better than when I came into it? So I think that was, in a way, the realization. It happened gradually, and it got accelerated after I met Sri.
Wow, that's really... So some people call this as, the calling. Is you also attribute something to a calling that you got?
I was always passionate about sustainability.
Okay.
And
even from your younger days?
Yeah, always. So it was, the terms were not there, the jargon was not there, that this is called sustainability, but always to do something which is longer lasting, always do something which is good in the long term.
Yeah.
So, and often what happens is compromise in the short term, but I've always somehow had that thing on the long term. What is it really that I want to do? I didn't really sit down and consciously think. I live a lot in the present moment, so I didn't think that how would I look back on my life and any deep thought like that. But it is just at this point of time, it seems that I could be more useful if I did A versus doing B. and take that decision and move with it.
Fascinating.
So actually, when I left the Bay Area, it
Yeah.
wasn't a conscious decision. I'm leaving something.
Yeah.
I just said, let me go and explore. Experiment was there at the ashram.
Yeah.
And that one day turned to a month, then a decade, and now it's almost 2 decades since I've been here.
And clearly you are enjoying what you're doing.
Yes, it's always not always an easy path to walk, especially the spiritual path, because nature through the guru will make sure that you're learning at a more accelerated growth.
Yeah.
So there's no pain, no gain, no growth without pain. And
Yeah.
if you have to grow faster, means you have to get beaten up a little bit more.
Yeah, I see.
So
and there is, I mean, just like anything else in life, there is no guarantee that one would grow in that path, right? Ultimately, it all depends on your interest, your effort, and everything that you do to get to the kind of level that you are in. Because if somebody listens to this and then jumps into this path, anticipating that they would also grow in a similar path, that's not really. It's like it's like a career in a professional path. Just because you come to Silicon Valley, that doesn't mean that everybody becomes an entrepreneur, everybody becomes successful, everybody is going to grow in the organization.
Yeah. Also, one more thing, BVJ, I strongly feel is no human being makes any decision unless they're enlightened, of course. But assuming that for the bulk of us who are not yet enlightened, we are somewhere on the path.
Yeah.
We don't make decisions ever which are not selfish. It's just the selfishness can be a little bigger or a different flavor of selfishness. So I frankly don't feel, many times people feel you had such a wonderful career, you were like the dream, American dream you could have lived, and what made you come back? Why did you give it all up? I say, frankly, I would like to think I gave a lot up and all that, but I did not.
Yeah.
I just took a choice which I thought was better for me. So in that sense, it was selfish. So what is most sustainable for the planet is if we can tie our individual happiness to a more collective happiness, then it just makes it easy.
Yeah, fascinating. Thank you so much for that insight. So many of us, both here and in India, we are kind of very familiar with one is a typical corporate, and the other one is the non-profit organization, right? That's basically what all of us are used to, and all of us are learning. All of us are involved on a daily basis, right? Especially the audience who are listening to this, right? They are involved in working for companies, and they're also like involved in some sort of non-profit organization. But here is something that you are creating, which is this whole concept of the social entrepreneurship. Do you want to take like few minutes to sort of explain this concept of social entrepreneurship and why this social entrepreneurship is needed in today's world?
What I would like to do, if you permit me, is I have a couple of slides which kind of capture the essence very quickly, and I've found that people really, find it that it resonates with them. Could I just share them quickly?
Absolutely, yeah. Please go ahead. Somebody has the slides?
I've got them.
You got it. Okay, great.
Yeah, let me just run it on full screen. Yes, are you able to see that?
Yes, we can.
So I thought it's apt that October 2nd was Gandhiji's birthday, and we are so fortunate that a person like this was born in a country and did so much for us. But there's something which he said, which is very close to my heart, which is this sense that the earth has enough actually to provide or satisfy every man's needs, but there's not enough for, he said, every man's greed. I would say even one man's greed. So to that extent, we really have a lot of abundance. The planet is there and is giving all the time, but just managing it better is where we are failing as part of this beautiful ecosystem. So what you asked, and I capture it this way, that the conventional enterprise or the corporate that you would call, typically it has a lot of competence. I actually admire a lot of the for-profit businesses. At the same time, what happens is just blindly going just after profit. Sometimes then it starts going into an area of greed. The intent, in a way, manifests that it starts damaging the ecosystem. And if you see most of the businesses, why we are facing the challenges like climate change or global warming is because of an excessive extractive model that many of the businesses work with. They also, in a way, create social impact, I feel. That could be through creation of livelihoods and more formally also through corporate social responsibility initiatives. So that's the conventional enterprise.
Yeah.
Then you have the other side where there's the charity, and where we are familiar with so many NGOs doing some great work. But the challenge with charities that I have seen, and this actually almost mirrors my personal journey. I was in a conventional enterprise in the Bay Area and the Silicon Valley. Then I moved to a charity NGO, Art of Living, the campus here, and fantastic work being done. But for many of the NGOs out there, they are not able to sustain or scale. So though they have a great intent, the competence sometimes is lacking to really grow it and replicate that success. So it remains limited. So this is my experience that when I was solving one major problem, which was how do I get a professional team in place for managing our construction, I hit upon the idea of creating this business called Sumeru Realty, where on one hand, we built this eco-friendly homes and ran a real estate business. At the same time, the proceeds from that, we put them back into Art of Living's projects and in setting up professional teams to manage the construction. So I actually, with Sumeru, I had one leg in conventional enterprise, another in traditional charity, and I successfully actually fell in the middle. So I call it an accidental social enterprise, and that's why the word quasi-social enterprise in the introduction. So social business is actually a culmination of these learnings from conventional enterprise and work to working in an NGO, and then realizing that probably social impact can be carried out in a much better way, in a more sustainable and scalable manner, if we use business models with the right intent to marry the competence of business with the intent of a NGO.
So does it mean because now there is an element of profitability that you're talking about in this social business? I mean, I think you nicely worded it. The fact that it says business, that means there is professionals that are working in the organization. The compensation structure could be kind of, if not to the market level, could be closer to the market level so that people can get decent compensation rather than full volunteering. And because of that, you can attract professionals who really come and join. And then the third component is because there is profitability, you could potentially even attract certain socially inclined investors, right? In fact, I'm actually seeing now many of the traditional investors are setting aside a percentage of their funds towards social entrepreneurship. And it is not a donation. It is not a charity contribution they're making. So they know that the returns expected from this investment in social business is a lot less compared to the typical investment that they make in risk kind of risk-centric kind of companies, right? So is that a fair statement to assume that even investors and venture capitalists would be very interested in investing in this social business, social entrepreneurship?
I think it is a trend, and the trend is accelerating. So I'm with you on that. At the same time, some of the interest in social business or entrepreneurship is also due to the climate change crisis and the push on enterprises to be more compliant on ESG goals. So that's also a contributor. But definitely there is an increasing trend driven by much more awareness among the consumers about products as well as what we are doing to our ecosystem. And social media, there's a positive side of social media, I think, has also contributed greatly to that awareness.
I see. So I'm just now curious. You showed this picture. On one circle, the blue circle, which is the charity part of it, and the other circle, which is the business part of it. And then you showed an intersection of the social business. So I'm now curious to understand, India has some 3 million NGOs or something like that, right? So and every country has a ton of these NGOs, which is primarily charity sort of organization. I'm now curious to understand, is there a blend that could work between this social business, social entrepreneurship, and the charity or the NGOs, the 3 million NGOs or so? Is there a way that both of them can work together and create like a win-win sort of a situation to the underprivileged and to the community?
Definitely, if there is an openness and
Okay.
awareness about it. And there are organizations which are increasingly showing that awareness. And in what way it can help is because, see, social business by its very name is to do with society. And the society in India, particularly where we are setting up this ecosystem, is 70%, 65% at least is still in rural areas.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the reasons that a lot of startups, if you look at the way the startup ecosystem is growing in India, most of them are focused in tier 1 cities, the metros, and maybe a few tier 2 cities.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason for that is it's just easier to work with because there is an ecosystem and you can work with technology, and there it is, and there's a market.
Mm-hmm.
When you go to the society, which is Bharat, I will call it,
Mm-hmm.
out of the metro areas, tier 1 cities, then you actually need a connect to the society.
Mm.
And that's where social enterprises, social entrepreneurs face a challenge. That's why they restrict only to technology and where they can play, because those challenges are too much. How do you actually reach the impact? How do you reach farmers, for example?
Mm.
So you might have a farming solution, but how do you, well, some of the entrepreneurs might have never really gone and stayed on a farm or know someone in their circle. How do you reach out? So that is where NGOs can play a big role because they have created the social capital. There's an element of trust because when an entrepreneur goes, you cannot just go there and say, I'm going to solve your problem. There are a lot of trust issues. And for that, NGOs, the genuine NGOs, let me put a quote unquote, can definitely play a big role in bridging that gap. We term it in our parlance as social capital. So when we are putting up the Sobus ecosystem, one of the critical parts of social capital is working through the existing organizations and creating a win-win. Many a times the NGOs are looking for sustainability also.
Yeah.
So if you can tie it as a natural evolution to kind of to make their initiatives more robust and self-sustaining, it becomes a win-win. So the entire emphasis is to create the win-wins with the NGOs.
Yeah. So before we come to the OVBI specific issues, I'm just curious to understand, in this social business, social entrepreneurship that you are defining right now, have you seen any successes? Have you seen some examples of the impact that these organizations have created?
Definitely yes, because without that, frankly, when I look at those overseas as a non-profit, I look at it as a startup also when I'm working with it. So the important thing is to be able to have a market. So even before venturing into creating a social business ecosystem, I have to make sure that there is actually a scope for social business. So definitely there are already success stories, and we interacted with a lot of them when I was validating the basic premise of Sobus. We worked with more than 23 such startups across the various sectors.
Yeah.
But I will put a caveat to that. Most of them have not scaled up to the extent that they could due to a variety of reasons. So the challenge is, so instead of starting a social enterprise after exiting from Sumeru, I thought this is the missing piece. how to enable them to make the leap to the next level. That is missing. So there's lots of successes in silos and individual success stories, but making them replicable has been a challenge.
I see. So this is still like in the experimentation stage, and hopefully over the next 5 to 10 years, we will actually start seeing some impact of this this social business, right, which has the ability to attract professionals, ability to attract investors, that can start demonstrating the scalability and sustainability of many of these projects.
Exactly. So the way I see it, there's nothing to lose in the sense.
Yeah.
Because anyway, the NGO side is not so sustainable or scalable.
Yeah.
So can you at least layer it and take it to one next level, even if it's a 50% more successful than that's moving the needle.
Yeah. So the good news, as I'm hearing from you, is that you still need the NGOs because they are the ones who build the trust with the Bharat or the non-cities related problems that NGOs are actually solving, because they work very closely and there is a trust factor that is established between the people who are getting the benefit to the people who are delivering these services. And you still believe that there is a need for genuine NGOs to solve these issues, and OVBI, which solves this water problem in the remote places, clearly has a role to play in a continuous basis, right?
Definitely. At the same time, again, I might be seeming very cautious or putting a caveat on every point, but the reason I say that is the NGOs have to seriously think about the sustainability through and through.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it becomes a leaky bucket.
Yeah.
So on one side, you're doing a lot of good work, and that's dissipating on the other side.
Yeah. No.
When I'm gonna say you, I don't mean OVBI. I'm talking about NGOs in general. So that has to be, in a way, blocked, because otherwise you're just going to drain away all the effort and be where you started. So, and I think that's where the livelihood and the economics is key in tying that piece together so that it becomes self-sustaining. If someone has to keep shepherding or keep putting energy into the system to keep it in equilibrium, it's never going to stay.
Yeah.
So you have to make it a...
Yeah. So that brings the relevant question to what we are doing at OVBI. And as you know, we are primarily focused at this point of time in essentially increasing the water capacity and hopefully eliminating this water poverty, right, which has impacted millions of people around the country. And but we, at the same time, we also understand, as we are involved deeper into these projects, we also understand that this whole thing is like a holistic approach, right? Which is which not only providing the water capacity, but it also, we need to figure out on how do you optimize the demand, how do you optimize the usage aspect of it, and environmental or social economic sort of an impact that we need to start to address, right? Along with the fact that we are solving this water problem. So do you see, or can you share with us, this holistic approach in this particular instance of the water capacity that we are increasing? And if you put a 360-degree holistic approach of the optimizing the demand aspect, the usage aspect, because we have seen, in many places where we have given this water capacity, where we have actually seen people are abusing the system, right? And I'm just curious to understand, if you have given some thought to give that holistic approach to solve this problem.
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's not a simple question. So, because the situations, even without, though the water is the common thread everywhere, the planet as well as our bodies are 70% water, the situation of water in all the places is different. So you can't take a one-size-fits-all solution, but you can take an approach. So I'll tell you what approach we are taking. So the basic context is we are starting a rural innovation, social and social entrepreneurship center in Pandharpur. Maharashtra. So Pandharpur falls in Solapur district, which has a peculiar problem, and but it illustrates exactly what you are saying. So it's like the just the right case. Abundance of water on one side because there's a huge dam called Ujni, and it's got one of the highest dead water levels. So huge amount of water,
Mm.
irrigation, and undergoing desertification at the same time.
Mhm.
So it seems baffling. How can this really be? So what has happened is a lot because of the availability of water, everyone has taken the water and has planted sugarcane,
Mhm.
which is a very water intensive crop. Leave aside the other detrimental effects of sugar. So uh, now you have a situation, huge amount of water, and all of it getting sucked up in this cash crop. So that's where the ecosystem perspective comes in. Just trying to create water or save water will not help. The entire thing driving it is the economics of what the farmers can grow and get money out of. Finally, they have to survive and they have to uh, uh, keep up their family. So for that survival, they will go for the best option available to them. And at the moment, it is the water intensive, water wasting crop. So what we are doing as a solution, and apart from water, so one other thing is separating out water will not work, because the moment you come to water, one of the reasons they might be overwatering is because water is released only at certain times, or electricity is only available at certain times.
Oh, I see.
So when it is available, you pump it up
Yeah.
instead of falling short. So
Yeah.
it's like stuffing yourself a lot, thinking you'll be starving later.
Yeah.
So it immediately comes to the question of pumping water, which brings you to energy.
Mhm. Mhm.
Energy means you have to put something. If you have to put a solar panel to get a solar pump, which
Mhm.
will allow you to pump whenever you need it,
Mm.
then that means you need money, and there's a capital expense.
Yeah.
So you start you it's like you take water or any of the issues, you take it and you start pulling at it, and you'll find the elephant comes with it.
Yeah.
So all the pieces are intertwined. So our solution, so apart from the water issue, so water issue is not only because of excessive usage. The ground is not holding water anymore because of chemical farming. So what has happened, there's nutrition, the layers have got compacted. So the water which used to actually go and seep through and add to the water table is now going as runoff.
Mm.
So you need to keep watering more. So there's a real need of water.
Mhm.
So now you come to chemical farming. So one of the ways to increase the ground capacity is to make that ecosystem work well.
I see.
It's, then it leads to groundwater contamination because there's so much chemicals and pesticides going in. There's a whole lot of livelihood issues around that, and culminating when that system breaks is where the farmer suicides happen.
Mhm.
They don't happen because they don't have food to eat.
Mhm.
They happen because they've taken too much loans for the agri inputs, which are basically fertilizers, pesticides, and seeds.
Mm.
So, as a ecosystem solution, what we are doing in Pandharpur area is we are creating, apart from motivating local entrepreneurs to become social entrepreneurs and taking them forward in the journey as an incubator, which we call a pull. We pull them to us. We're also pushing some ideas from our side.
Got it.
So one of them,
And the reception is okay? It's well
uh,
received?
we have just started, and so far it has been phenomenal.
Mm.
And that is why it is phenomenal, has to be understood also. You have to create an economic win-win also.
Yeah, exactly.
So I will just explain that briefly. We are creating a customer-facing, high-trust organic brand as an initiative from Sobus. The reason to do that is, if a farmer has to switch to organic farming, which will do all of this systemic ecosystem benefits, it will only happen if we can realize a yield which is per acre comparable to chemical farming.
I
For
see.
that, you need to connect to the market to get the premium for your produce. And so that is the front ending. To do that, you also need scale, because a farmer, most of the farmers in India are small and marginal farmers. So you cannot get that scale. Everyone can't go and build a brand.
Mm-mm.
So we are taking the onus to do that. so that the other parts of the ecosystem start lining up with it. So there's many issues, we can go deeper into it, but just for the sake of time, I'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
Uh, but that's an intervention which can tie all the following pieces very nicely. Other input, organic farming becomes more work for the farmer also, because you have to create your own manure and jivamrit and all of that. But in chemical farming, it's easy to be lazy. You just go buy and bring it. Sometimes they'll come and deliver it to you also.
Right.
And then you don't need to pay, because the government will pay you for the loans.
The government also gives heavy subsidy, or
Exactly.
perhaps maybe they even give it free.
Most of the loan waivers, people might not know, don't go to the farmers. They go to the fertilizer and the input companies.
Exactly. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So it's a loan waiver which gets paid off. The farmer doesn't get much of the money actually.
Yeah. So yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
So just to complete this point, even for the inputs, once we have a certain scale, we are also working with entrepreneur who's creating biofertilizers, vermicompost, and that is his business. But if he gets enough scale and enough demand, then even that input system can be put in place.
Yeah. So I mean, I can relate to this very well, because I come from a village, and my father, we had lands, and we were cultivating rice and ragi and various kinds of things. So, and I'm like, even now I'm in touch with the villagers, and I'm sort of like understand these issues very well. Now, talking about this sustainability. So one of the things in India, which I don't know whether this is good or bad, is the fact that farmers don't have to pay for water, and farmers don't have to pay for electricity, right, for agricultural purposes. So when you bring this social entrepreneurship into picture, everything has to translate into, when someone is benefiting, right, from whatever that is given to you, it has to translate back into, somehow it has to be given back. Do you see some sort of a imbalance that gets created, or a friction or a rift between the farmers and the social entrepreneurs, or whoever who's trying to create this whole loop back system?
It should not, if done right. So that's the system kind of giving you a feedback. If in case there is friction, then that means you're probably working against the tide. So if you go and do something which is beneficial, it will get received well. Yes, there is an element of awareness creation, but definitely the resistance is not so high. And let's think of it like that: if we go as an attitude that I'm here to save you, I know better, then there's definitely going to be a resistance. So we have to go with a humility that there's certain experiences we have, maybe this could be useful, and really understand what's happening with them, one. And second, social entrepreneurs are not different from farmers. Farmers are one of the, I would say, the most risk-taking social entrepreneurs. They are putting the inputs themselves. They're running it like a business, taking all the risk against uncertainties of climate, water, market prices, all of that. And they're doing it for society. When everything crashed at COVID time, is the farm sector which saved both the economy as well as people in terms of the food. So they are the social entrepreneurs. So it's not someone else going from outside who's a social entrepreneur. It's the people from there outside and working together. Some of the things we have to learn. Like, I love something that Varghese Kurian said. Varghese Kurian, Amul, right?
Yeah.
What he said: India's real development will happen through the competence of its professionals and the wisdom of its rural people.
Wonderful.
So that is something we have to be very aware of. That then we think, and also you have to be smart. Like, for example, why I'm basing the thing in Maharashtra is I'm personally well connected in Maharashtra. So the proof points I'm doing in Maharashtra, but close to the border, Solapur. Again, I'm well connected there. Plus, Karnataka and Telangana are not very far. So as we expand through the one center, we can reach 3 states. But again, I'm not trying to go to Jharkhand, where the ecosystem is itself not so well developed. To take social business entrepreneurship. So we have to be smart about it also.
Yeah. So do you see that the rural entrepreneurship actually taking off. I mean, there are instances of
BVG, I have a question for you.
yes, go ahead.
You are from a rural background.
Yes.
I'm aware of your journey. I've heard about it, how you have risen, and you have been so successful.
Yeah.
What is it that you think has contributed for you to go from that place, where there were hardly any resources, to where you are now?
Well,
What is it that has helped you?
I think the number one thing that fundamentally makes the difference in everybody's life, right, is one is the education, and the other one is making sure that at least 2 meals a day is provided, to these children. So that is the reason as to why I'm also involved in these nonprofit organizations that fundamentally uh, impact the society with the education and food, and of course water is a very integral part of that, because without those things, then your mind is somewhere else, right? You're not focused on what you how you want to grow, or what you want to do, or even studying as well. And once you have those basic needs like the food and water and so on and so forth, then the next thing, right, is the education, which is what is going to give you that push from the orbit that you are stuck into the next orbit. And I mean, literally, if I go back and look at the classmates that I had, and most of them are in the villages, so there's nothing wrong, by the way, by being in the village. But some of us who have moved out into other aspects of life, is that push that we got on the education. And we were very fortunate with the fact that parents emphasized so much on getting that education, right? That's basically what really helped. And then one led to another, and eventually that's what made the difference. And that is the reason as to why I'm so deeply involved in several of these nonprofit organizations, that these classmates of mine, where some of them are very intelligent, very brilliant guys, but because of that environment, that they were not given that push at that time. At least I want to see what I can do to help those kind of people, right? And some want to stay back in the village, some want to stay back where they are, but there'll be some minds who want to go to that next orbit. And if
Yeah.
I can help through these means, I'll be the happiest person on earth, actually. And that's the
So
reason.
what I hear and what I see also from you is the ecosystem around you pushed you.
Mhm. Exactly.
So that is the most important thing. We don't have to teach people to do too many things. We just have to create an ecosystem which allows them the
Correct.
possibility of doing it. And
Exactly.
that's exactly what we are trying to create also throughout this. We don't have to create as in like sculpt the entrepreneurs. You can't do that.
Do that.
Everyone has their own journey. And
Yeah.
the other part, along with the environment, I feel we need three essential components. This is my learning from the interactions I'm having. One is the awareness and vision tied together. Awareness of what is happening and a vision of where it could be. One. Then next two components are skill, but also equally or more important, I would call will. That is very critical. Many a times what happens in rural areas for rural entrepreneurs is a lack of self-esteem has crept in, lack of self-belief. That is the first step to break. So just skill will not be it. Then you'll want to go and become take a job in a bigger firm only, rather than becoming an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
So the will component is critical. And I just loved what I read in your the signature that you put.
Yeah.
Can you read it out for everyone?
Yeah,
It
sure.
touched my heart about the persistence part.
Yeah. Nothing in the world can take the place of persistence. Not talent, not genius, not education. Persistent and determination alone are omnipotent. So, which basically, once you have that, all the rest of the things you will be able to start achieving or getting those things. But if you don't have that persistent and determination, it'll be very difficult to achieve rest of the things. So in fact,
Exactly.
that's why when I speak to the students these days, right, I actually talk about the three aspects. One is uh, called consistency. Whatever you do, you have to have the consistency in life. Second one is the perseverance, right, which is what we just talked about. And the third is the self-driven. As you rightly said, right, nobody can carve out an entrepreneur for any job, as a matter of fact. So it has to be self-driven. So this is what I kind of tell whenever I'm asked to speak in front of the students, right? I basically say, guys, most successful people in this world, right, you take anyone, these are the three core ingredients that they pretty much follow. Consistency, that means it's not just one time they do things, right? When you start doing it, you have to do it consistently, week after week, month after month, year after year, decades after decade, right? That is what consistency is about. And then having that perseverance, and anything you do, it has to be self driven. So that is the,
Fantastic. This is such a great message.
yeah,
Also, one last thing also I've seen, which kind of ties all of this together, is it's not an easy path to tread. Entrepreneurship by its very nature, and rural or social entrepreneurship sometimes even more challenging. But what really helps is to create stories and role models, success stories, and that's
absolutely.
what we yeah, and that's what we are trying to also do through our rural innovation center. It's not that one center is going to transform the country.
Yeah,
By the way, we have a plan for a scale up of the centers themselves. But even that, we can't go and change a country like India unless we use its inherent potential. And India is hugely entrepreneurial. Just 1% of the economy is the formal economy that we see. It is the rest 99% is MSME. And
mm-hmm.
out of that 99%, 90% is MNS, which is micro and small. So it
Mm-hmm.
is an entrepreneurial country. That is something which we already have in our genes. We just have to give it an outlet and give it an environment in which it can just gush forth. So if we can do that, I think it will be a huge thing, and those success stories will make it a ripple effect. We
Yep,
don't have to go and build 50 centers.
correct. It will start replicating. Yeah.
Yeah,
In fact, that's what we do when we build these schools in many of the places around India. So what we do is we take a local hero and we bring the local hero, because the students over there, they can relate to a local hero, because that local hero was someone that would have gone to the same school, that would have gone through the same grinding that everyone is going through. Because if you put a very rich guy, right, who has been successful, they don't even know the path that this person actually took, whereas they can relate to a local person who has been successful by going to the same school, by walking the same roads, and doing the same thing that everybody else has done. And as you rightly said, I think having those role models and presenting those role models absolutely will inspire millions and millions of the next generation of the people that we want to inspire.
and I'm going to share one dream I have with you and everyone here, that through this social business ecosystem, I'm hoping that we can create the first uh, truly ground up rural social business unicorn. So the idea is not just about the money, but it is about creating that aspiration or that feeling that yes, you can do good and you can make money while doing that. If we can get that feeling in youngsters, we don't need to do anything more. Right now, there's a split in the mind, many a times brought up by society, that these are in opposite directions. Profit and purpose means you have to let go. You start doing service after you have retired. So if you can change that you can spend your fruitful life contributing and doing well for yourself, I think that is something which will really take it to the next level.
I agree. I mean, we have examples of a couple of unicorns being created from companies like Zoho. I mean, you may have heard of Zoho.
I'm
Zoho,
a big follower and fan of Zoho,
yeah.
and
So
they are doing something very interesting about skill development in villages.
Exactly.
offline sometime we should talk about that.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's a great example. I have a lot of respect for Sridhar, who is the founder, CEO of Zoho, who has truly created, and he believes that if you want to transform, you have to transform these villages and adapt the skills from the rural area, and then train them, and you can create an incredible company right out of the talent from the rural as well. So I guess we have another 5-10 minutes or so, and I would like to see if Manu has questions from the audience. But before that, if you can answer essentially, this concept of the social entrepreneurship and the OVBI work. Now that you know many of the things that we are working on, how do you see near term, midterm, maybe long term? How do you see that the social entrepreneurship concept and the work that we are doing in rural to provide the water, right, and eliminating this water poverty cause that we have? So how do you think we can work together?
I think around initiatives around farming, because as you are aware, 80% of the water consumption is in agriculture. So that is so it's an input to a factory. Let us say, if you look at agriculture, so you have to address what's happening in that factory, how to make sure that the input is reduced or reused or whatever other solutions. So that production unit, which is agriculture, is something which I can see immediately is the convergence point for water and social entrepreneurship.
Yeah, agree. Manu, you have any questions? You are muted. You're muted. You need to unmute.
There we go.
Yeah.
All right. It's a fascinating conversation. That we have a lot of questions. So the first one that I want to ask, right, and this is maybe more from me also. When I was listening to the conversation, there was lots of interesting phrases. Solving the leaky bucket. You're talking about ecosystem, self-belief, right? The idea about a ground-up, bottom-up unicorn, right? So in some sense, what you're saying is that, at least this is my take on this. The example is you're empowering farmers to solve their own problems, right? Not wait for an NGO, not wait for a social, whatever it is. The farmers, you can solve your own problems, whether it's through of water or the soil health or anything of that sort. Is that how you think about this, right? Empowering the farmer as the bottom line.
Yes, but the empowerment has to be with some solutions. So I'll give you a quick example, farmers. So we are working with a startup which is successfully setting up organic farming plots. They are doing 1 acre, 2 acre, and 5 acre models.
Yeah.
They are working with retired army men whom they are training to become farmers. So they already have the discipline to run a corporate system.
Yeah.
So we are taking them from Tamil Nadu, where they're already successfully operating and selling to Chennai, Pondicherry, Trichy, and Coimbatore.
Yeah.
We are going to take them and parachute them into Pandharpur. So one is the local organically grown ones, but when I said the overall initiative, so we are getting already existing ones to come in. So it's not just telling them that
you could do this. Side. It's a programmatic
side. The programmatic side also has to come in where they see the success. Someone might have 5 acres, but they're not going to risk it at some fancy idea. Say, we have a 1 acre model. Come, we'll work with you.
Yeah,
that becomes successful. Then, if the economics works, why the heck would they not shift over the rest of their land? It's as simple as that.
Yeah. No, wonderful. And so from Chennai, one of our friends have this question: what kind of solutions can one offer for small and marginal farmers in very dry lands?
I do not claim to be an expert on every solution, but what I can claim we can do to a fair level of success is go and find the solution. So how we are working with startups is, if you have a problem, I might not be able to solve it, but I have the networks and resources to help you solve it. So I can't claim to be the repository of all the knowledge. I would really like to help them out, but if we know the specifics, definitely we can find. So the model is, first I'll try to find the solution. No need to reinvent the wheel every time. But if it comes to building, then we'll find the people who help you build the solution.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So it's not just giving people the fish, like the old saying that you say, right? But how do you teach them to fish and
100%,
enable them?
100%.
Yeah. So there's a
Yeah,
question
in
from
fact, I
Sridhar.
think sometimes NGOs that gives too much stuff, they disempower the people.
Absolutely. Right.
I
And that
feel,
goes back to the conversation you had, empowerment being the key.
yeah,
Yeah.
definitely, yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, so now Sridhar has a question, about how an NGO, right? Obviously, somebody like OVBI would love to be part of your ecosystem and how you think about it. But how does generally an NGO become part of your ecosystem?
So we are setting up a digital platform also for people to sign up and work. But a lot of the work that we do, especially in Bharat, is not, it can't just happen off a digital platform. There's a lot of offline connect. But
Yeah,
what you can do is to start the process, sign up on a website, and we have a form there which says join the movement. So there's different options. What are the areas where you have either an expertise or an interest, and what are the roles you could play within that? Whether you could be a mentor, whether you could be an investor, whether you can be just a researcher.
so can you give the website name,
It is
Digvijayji?
sobusinsight.org.
There you go. Sobusinsight.
www.sobus social business sobus dot sobusinsight.org.
Yeah, we have that. We have that at the bottom there. No, wonderful. The other question that came from Vida is how, what are the ways to impart and fine tune entrepreneurial skills for farmers?
It's a very broad question, frankly, but uh, the best way is, again, show success stories and something that works. If I were to tell it simply,
Yeah.
then there's many other things around training them with certain skills, say how to do the organic farming, how to do processing, help them to create value addition closer to the farm gate, things like that. So there's lots of things. There's no one thing. It will depend, again, very contextual solutions also have to be found. But at a high level, if you say, to show them that's something that works, then people will want to replicate that. Then they come with questions, but here it does not work this way, what do I do? And that's where
Yeah.
the journey then takes you. So,
No, no, no.
I just want to add, November 22nd, we're going to have the founder CEO, who's also a social entrepreneur, who is helping thousands of farmers in Uttar Pradesh and Manipur and other places, who actually addresses exactly that point of working with the farmers and giving them lots of tools. And personally, I have seen myself as to how the yield actually triples or quadruples by simple techniques that he teaches these farmers. And it is remarkable to see, right, the yield increase. And moment the yield increase for the same land and for the same investment of the sowing and other things, the yield actually goes up by 3 or
yeah.
4 times.
and,
So
and
he'll
unless
be,
that happens, what BVG is saying, you're not going to retain people in farming, because it's simply not feasible. So improving, but again, if you were to ask for a magic formula, there is no formula. It all starts with them first getting that awareness and vision and ready to participate. Then that's where the discovery happens, and then it leads from there. So think of it in another way also, that uh, if it was so easy to solve these problems, they would have got solved. So people are not attempting that so much because there's so much complexity, so much contextual nature to the issues, that is difficult to give just one template, but you can definitely have a framework which tries to then help it.
Yeah, yeah. So maybe one last question before we wrap up, right? Is there something in your mind that is hindering this concept of social entrepreneurship, or rural entrepreneurship? Is it an education issue? Is there risk, or maybe it's more access to capital? What do you think is hindering this?
The challenges, I would say, from both the sides. One is for the entrepreneur, as I said, is a lack of exposure, lack of self-belief, and lack of some of the basic ecosystem support needed to go forward.
Yeah,
So that's from the entrepreneur side. And then the other ecosystem players, uh, the business models force them to move in a certain direction. So it might actually be possible. Of course, every problem, we have to be clear, every problem cannot be solved in a business model.
Yeah.
But there are a number of challenges. If you look around, all the problems are opportunities. However, the current paradigm is to try to maximize and then go towards only those solutions. That is a bit of a challenge. So we have to create more awareness and success stories even for the people, not just the local social entrepreneurs there, but the people who are working in corporates, that social business can be a viable career option. That's where the success stories and
Yes.
the unicorn come in, so that you can start attracting really great talent. If that comes, the money will also start flowing.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, makes a lot of sense. No, this has been such a fascinating conversation. It's hard to let it go. But Digvijayji, thank you so much for your time in joining us and sharing your experience, your insights, and your vision around social entrepreneurship today. To our viewers, we hope that this session has been as fun and insightful and informative as it was for us. And as you know, OVBI, the water team, is bringing you conversations with experts such as Digvijay Ji every week. We're talking to entrepreneurs, we are partners and execution leaders. Every Sunday, I think going forward, we might shift it from 10 a.m. Pacific time to maybe 9 a.m. so that we take advantage of the daylight savings. Please watch out for that. And you can come and see the lineup of topics and speakers by visiting us at Eliminating Water Poverty /live series, right? And this is something we say every time, right? All experts believe we have very little time, maybe less than a decade to address the water problems in India. And so we need all the help we can get. From OVBI, we would love for each one of you to participate in whatever way you can to address this problem. If you can pass on this information, share some of these videos to educate others, volunteer with us, or donate in whatever capacity you can so that we can continue this work. Just to let you know, $1,500 can provide water security for an entire village for their lifetime for about 2,000 people. And the way we talk about it is that the small collection of drops is what creates an ocean. So any contribution from you will help us in eliminating water poverty for India. Please visit us at eliminatingwaterpoverty.org to find out more on how you can help. And thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next week, the same time.
And I would like to compliment OVBI for the great work that you're doing. And let's hope we can together also take forward the mission. Thank you so much for having me here. And thank you, BVG and Manuji. Wonderful to interact with.
Thank you. This was wonderful.
Thank you so much. Really, it was a pleasure having this conversation. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay.
Bye.
Namaste.